Well, hello everyone, I'm Postmaster Radio and welcome back to Whose Line Highlights. This is the official podcast bringing you the highlights from the improv comedy show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Today I'm counting down my top 10 Aisha Tyler moments from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Season 17. Pretty fun bonus podcast, huh? But before the fabulously funny Whose Line host herself enters the spotlight, I want to remind you that if you missed any of the episodes from Whose Line's 17th season catch-up via my podcast, you'll find it on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Podchaser. The account links are all in the description. And if you are listening from Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, please leave a rating and review if it is not too much trouble. But now, without further ado, let's get started. Top 10 Aisha Tyler moments from the newest season of Whose Line Is It Anyway? At spot number 10 on the countdown, we go to a bit of a bizarre category of Scenes from a Hat. From the last episode in the show's 17th season, Weird Things for a Cop to Say.
That's not my gun.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I said it in the podcast for the season finale, but I'll say it again, crazy cops. Oh boy. Next up at spot number 9 on the countdown, we go to the episode that came before the season finale. From a game of questions. Now, you know how this game works. The performers that are up on the stage, Colin Mockery, Wayne Brady, Ryan Stiles, and in that episode's case, Jeff Davis, while they're up on stage doing their thing in the scene, they can only speak in questions. Now, it's Aisha's job to buzz them out whenever one of them makes a mistake. But for this case, well, just listen.
Looking for some tail? I was hoping for some ass. That's not a question.
That's not a question. It was just so funny.
Yeah, it's funny because usually whenever these kinds of mistakes happen, it only seems to be based off of Aisha accidentally buzzing somebody out despite them asking a question. Here in this case, it's kind of the exact opposite now in a funny way, so kudos to Aisha for bringing us a good laugh out of that little mini bit. Next up, spot number 8 on the countdown. Still on that same Whose Line episode, we go to a game called Party Quirks, kind of like Let's Make a Date, in which somebody, in this case Jeff, hosts a party. The others each have a unique quirk or identity that the party host must figure out. Now, for this Aisha moment, we get to Wayne's quirk, a fast and the furious movie in 30 seconds. Was Aisha's cameo brief? Incredibly so. But if I'm not mistaken, the first Aisha cameo in Party Quirks. But throughout that franchise, sometimes there will be these women that do not speak a word of English. Aisha cameoed as those kinds of women, one of them actually, but still. And again, just a brief cameo in that game of Party Quirks, but a funny one nonetheless, so kudos to Aisha. Now at spot number 7 on the countdown, we go to the episode before that one, kind of backtracking this season a little bit, but this time we go to one of my favorite games, Scenes from a Hat. This is a bit that, unlike so many others on Whose Line, nobody needs to even say anything for this bit to be hilariously funny. The Scenes from a Hat category at hand, bad times to have an annoying buddy with you. And this, admittingly, I think was more Ryan's bit than anything, but you gotta give props to Aisha's participation, even if for her it's unexpected in these kinds of bits, because in this case, it was Aisha hosting the show, and Ryan was said annoying buddy, basically being all like, you know, like hitting the buzzer constantly and messing around with the little knobs and buttons that Aisha has at her Whose Line desk. And first of all, possible real life scenario right there. And maybe that's why Aisha Tyler is the one and only Whose Line host. So that might explain a few things. Now, it does not explain why Ryan is still allowed to be at the Whose Line desk despite the many shenanigans he has done near said desk, but that is another story for another day. For now, funny bit, of course, from Ryan and Aisha as well. At spot number 6 on the countdown, we go to a game called Well, after this game was done, Filmdub. You all know how this game works. The comedians, they improvise a scene based off an old piece of film, but the dialogue is removed. So Colin, Wayne, Ryan, and for this game's case, Greg Proops, they have to revoice the clip using their imaginations. Yes, very imaginative. One of the points in the Filmdub game, and by the way, the scene for this Filmdub was a failing dinner of some sort, but anyway, there was a potato shortage, so one of the characters in the film goes to call somebody. For our scene, of course, the call is for more potatoes. Now, with that call, you get this lady on the other end that says, "Hello, Potato Shack." And I can't do the voice nearly as well as Wayne did for that bit of Filmdub, but you get the gist of it. That ended up sparking this little Aisha moment that, inadvertently, if such a place called Potato Shack were to exist, I think this would be one hell of a jingle. It's certainly catchy.
When you want to hear a white lady who sounds black, come on down to the Potato Shack.
Yeah, it's also because Aisha is such a damn good singer. You would know that, of course, if you've been tuning into some other episodes of Whose Line from past seasons, including that bit on Scenes from a Hat, which I think was called Songs That Instantly Kill the Mood. And then, even though you can hear Aisha singing things like, "Oh baby, I love you, but I hear my husband coming home," it's like the bit itself is so insane, but Aisha's voice makes it a little more normal in a weird way. I mean, there's no use denying it. Aisha Tyler's voice, incredibly harmonious. Kudos, once again, Aisha, for that wonderful Potato Shack jingle. And now, let's imagine something else, Whose Line fans. What if there was a convention full of Aisha Tyler's weirdest and most bizarre fans? Well, episode 6 for the 17th season of Whose Line kind of answered our question a little bit. At spot number 5 on the countdown, we go to the end of that episode of Whose Line. All of the comedians from the night, they read out the credits as if they were all Aisha's weirdest fans at a convention. I cannot possibly give you all the details of what went down with this bit at the end, but it's pretty rare to see, maybe not so much Aisha being involved in the end credits, because that has happened a few times before, but it is rare to see the actual end credits of a show be a part of the Whose Line countdown, let alone, of course, on my own Whose Line podcast. That doesn't happen very often, but nevertheless, it was still a funny Whose Line moment at that. My only question is, did Aisha decide how the comedians should read out the credits? For that instance, I'm not sure if it's her that usually decides, or if somebody else on the Whose Line staff. I would like that answered, because I almost feel like Aisha wanted Colin, Wayne, and the others to read out the credits in that fashion. Does anyone know the answer to that question, though? Does Aisha decide how the comedians read the credits? Or if you guys know, please let me know. I would love to hear the answer. Anyway, at spot number 4 on the countdown, we go to another fun bit on Scenes from a Hat. If bad news were delivered in song. And a bit of a bonus shout out to Ryan Stiles for this bit. Aisha pretty much does dominate in the bit. Once again, an example of her harmonious voice.
The baby's yours.
I thought you said bad news.
Yeah, again, let's be honest. Aisha pretty much nailed it with that bit, but once again, Ryan Stiles with the additional, "I thought you said bad news." I will admit, that did add a little bit of additional funny onto that bit, if you know what I mean. But again, like I said, another example of Aisha being such a talented singer, and dang, what a voice. By the way, so we're all in agreement, that's the voice of an angel, right? Aisha's voice is definitely the voice of an angel. Am I right, or am I right? And now, my Whose Line fans, we're down to the top 3 moments from Aisha Tyler from season 17 of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Let's see. We're getting closer to the top spot, but right now at spot number 3 on the countdown, we go to the game that's probably the brother or sister of Scenes from a Hat, World's Worst. And you're gonna love this scene, clips from the World's Worst action movie.
Listen to me.
Yeah.
If this bus slows down below 50 miles an hour,
All right.
you will be really late for work. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if I feel the need for speed with this bit, but I definitely feel the funny. Nice job, Aisha. Now at spot number 2 on the countdown, back to the season finale. Early on in the countdown, I mentioned a bit from the game questions. Well, funny enough, for this next Aisha moment in the number 2 spot on the top 10 countdown, from a different installment of questions, equally funny, and possibly Aisha getting high? Yeah, I know, just listen.
Is Snow White? Is Clint Black? Is Jerry Howell? Is James Brown? Are you high?
Isn't it obvious?
Of course, you know Aisha was playing along in that moment. That being said, similar to that Party Quirks cameo, I feel like this is the first time we've seen Aisha ask a question during the game of questions, even if, of course, somebody else is being buzzed out. Am I wrong? If I am, let me know, but I'm pretty sure that this too is a Who's Line First for Aisha. And finally, still on the season finale, you cannot talk me out of this. This one is definitely my favorite Aisha moment from Who's Line's 17th season. At spot number 1, we go to another bit on Scenes from a Hat. No more crazy cops though, but for this bit, which is indeed comedy genius if you ask me, things you can say about your apartment that you cannot say about your partner.
Well, I mean, it's just ugly and overpriced and too small.
Yeah, I mean, that bit just pretty much does all of the talking. Plus, I have seen this happen before with the old things you can say about yada yada, but not your partner. Aisha has had some good bits from those types of Scenes from a Hat suggestions. So, of course, a bit like that would for sure dominate all the way. And Aisha, as we come to the end of your Who's Line countdown for this season, in the unlikely event that you are listening to this particular Who's Line podcast, I must say you are such a fantastic Who's Line host. You never disappoint. And I know that because on a scale of 1 to 10, you're definitely at least 800,000. So fantastic. What a sensational Who's Line host. Aisha Tyler, the one and only on the CW network. Now, with that being said, that's it for this week and for the top 10 Aisha moments from Who's Line Season 17. Do you agree with this list? What were your favorite Aisha moments from Season 17 of Who's Line? Let me know on Twitter and Instagram at PostmasterRadio. The next Who's Line podcast will be released later on in the summer, and it will focus on the best of Season 17, but next time for our comedians. You know, Colin Mockery, Wayne Brady, Ryan Stiles, as well as Heather Ann Campbell, Greg Proops, Naima Funk, and so much more. You do not want to miss out. Meantime, I gotta ask my Who's Line fanatics, you guys listening to the podcast, what were your favorite Who's Line moments from Season 17? Let me know on Twitter and Instagram ASAP for a shout out on the podcast. And if you happen to be listening from YouTube as well, bear in mind, of course, Who's Line Highlights podcasts are not normally uploaded to my YouTube channel, and the ones that are usually will not be a part of each individual episode, but rather just a mini special podcast. But that being said, this is a lucky break for the Who's Line fans listening on YouTube. You can tell me your favorite Who's Line Season 17 moments for a shout out on the Who's Line Best of Season 17 podcast event, which again is coming up later on in the summer, so stay tuned. Meantime, stay connected with me on Twitter and Instagram at Postmaster Radio. Plus, again, stay connected with me, like, subscribe, rate, comment, and review on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Podchaser. The account links are all in the description. Once again, thank you so much for listening to this week's Who's Line podcast. I hope you had a great time, and until we meet again, well, bye for now. See ya!